Welcome back to the Man That Can project with Lachlan Stuart. This week we have another member of the dynamic duo from the Impact film that you guys have been hearing a lot about. It's Ben Lucoch. Benny, thanks for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Mate, I think you're at your in-laws at the moment. We got the Harry Potter collection in the background, which just jumped out at me, funnily enough.
Yeah, it's making me look intelligent.
Yeah.
Book, mate.
It's one of the greatest tips of all time is putting a bookcase behind you when you're on a podcast.
Is it? I'm a shoo-in.
Yeah. I when I was living back here in Australia at our studio, when we had one back home, I had this fancy bookcase, and people were like, "Oh, you read that?" I'm like, "Nah, that's just an image, mate."
Yeah, that's right. Stand in front of a green screen, really.
Exactly. Exactly. But mate, it's great to have you on here today. And as I was saying last week with Luch's episode, like I really just wanted to get on here and get to know a little bit more about you. And you're obviously a paramedic and an avid. You do base jumping as well, right? Which is, I think, is even more insane than skydiving.
Well, I'm a retired base jumper. I think I probably refer to myself these days. I haven't jumped for a few years now, so as much as I miss it and I think about it a lot, it's I haven't done it for a few years, and it's probably not on the cards for a couple more. So
yeah, what's it like base jumping? All I picture is like you're on this beautiful cliff face, like something that's great for photos, and next minute you're deciding to jump off it.
Oh yeah, it's the most incredible feeling. It's the biggest adrenaline dump you'll probably ever get, and but like I said to a lot of people, I enjoy every aspect of base jumping. I enjoy the camping in the mountains, the hiking at dark time, and all the unique views you get of the valley. And like you said, you arrive to this location, you might have a little bit of breakfast up the top there, maybe watch the sun come up, and I'm sure you've probably been to the mountains before. They breathe, like they actually breathe. The way that the sun hits them and the heat generates in the valley, there's awesome energy. And then obviously getting a quick way back down is the cherry on top.
Cherry on top. That initial jump? Do you ever find yourself struggling to just take that step, or are you just that excited you're ready to rumble?
Oh, I'm always terrified, absolutely petrified, and I think if you weren't scared, you'd probably, take a good look at why you're actually doing it, because there's a lot of risk. Once you get into the sport, you lose a lot of friends to the sport. So you really got to love it. You got to enjoy it. You have to have a respect for it. And obviously the scarier you are, the bigger the rush you get once it's successful. So
for sure.
It's a great feeling that there's that sense of like absolutely petrified when you're on the edge, but obviously in the wingsuits, I mostly jumped in the wingsuits. Once you leave the cliff, like once you feel yourself, you've leant forward, you're committed, you can't step back. That sensation of once you leave the cliff is just unbelievable.
And you're just trusting this wingsuit.
Yeah.
With base jumping, because I've skydived twice, and I think that's more than enough for me now. But obviously, I haven't jumped solo, so I've never had that experience because you have old bud strapped to your back. When you're learning to base jump, is there the same thing, or you should already sort of know how to, like, there's no tandem base jumping, is there?
There is these days. There's tandem base jumping, but it's not utilised as a instruction thing. It's a joy thing. So it's for people that want to get the sensation of a base jump, but don't want to do the years of training and all that kind of things leading up to it. Basically, with base jumping, you're just reliant on skydiving as training. So I think I had about 700 jumps before I did a base jump. 700 skydives, that is. And then I found a really good mentor, and you just get someone to teach you.
That's awesome. That's wild. 700 jumps, so is very impressive. But can we'll go back a little bit, like before you got into skydiving, give everyone a bit of a, I guess, quick snapshot on what life was like for you growing up, how you got into, what drew you to wanting to be a paramedic, and then also to skydiving as well.
I think I've always been like a sporting enthusiast. So obviously all through high school, I was a very keen bodyboarder. So I was in the surf every day. I was right into that. And I think I've always been pretty intense. It's something that like I wanted to be good at. So I just lived and breathed it, the ocean. And then I moved into, I think I went from that to wrestling, and I just lived and breathed that. And then I moved into kite surfing, went back to the ocean. And then I got into motorbikes. I was right into like racing road bikes for a few years.
Wow.
And then somehow, I think I watched it on YouTube. I didn't have any friends that did it. I watched base jumping on YouTube, and I just thought that has to be the most incredible feeling, like flying a wingsuit down a cliff. Yeah. It's got to be unbelievable. You know, I had that speed feeling from motorbikes, and I was like, oh, this just kind of captures every adrenaline area. And funnily enough, like growing up as a kid, I was like almost laughable, terrified of heights. Like the first time we lived in a 2-story house, I think I was like 10 or 12 years old. To get into the 2-story house, it was a split level, so someone lived downstairs and we lived upstairs. So to get up into where we lived, it was an outdoor staircase. And the day we moved in, I couldn't go up the stairs. That's how bad my fear of heights was.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'd get scared in the car going around roundy mountains. Like, I think once you kind of come out of the back end of puberty, I had this sense to, like, I loved the achievement of overcoming fears. I was just so addicted to it. Base jumping seemed like the opposite end of the spectrum to living in fear of heights. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
Like I was saying this to Luch, like skydiving videos and also like wingsuits and stuff, and I find it very therapeutic to watch. It's a different story when I've jumped out of a plane, like just sweaty palms, being like, fuck. Like, I agree, it's the most freeing feeling when you get there, but I think as you said a moment ago, like you've lost friends to the sport, and there's just so many things that I've been made aware of that I'm like, I don't know whether I could risk that feeling for it.
Yeah, and now I'm a father to a 2-year-old these days. It's one of the reasons I probably won't jump for a long time. So yeah, you have that risk versus reward thing, and yep. When you're single and doing your own thing, that doesn't seem to matter. So
that's true. That's fair.
Yeah, but I guess the main difference to skydiving is, like, you know, once you get in that plane, it's very loud. There's lots of other people there. A green light says go. You know, you kind of ushered out the door essentially.
Yep.
Whereas base jumping's that, you know, a self-regulated sport, really. You can hike any mountain, and you can sit there for hours, whether you're waiting for a weather window or, you know, just waiting for that right time for all the nerves to calm down. You're like, right, I'm going to suit up and have a go. Like, so it's really nice having that kind of aspect to it, I think.
The freeing feeling of it all.
Yeah.
So what was it that made you want to get into paramedics? Like, was there anything in your upbringing, or you just sort of got to that age where you're like, all right, I need to pick something on a board and this is what I feel like doing?
Yeah, I think, well, I was a builder for years.
Oh, really?
So I was just a chippy. Yeah, I was a chippy for 7 years, almost 8 years. And I really liked it. I think it was a good job. I liked the ideas on building sites. I found it rewarding, you know, very visually rewarding. And thought I wasn't bad at it. And then I think during the GFC, when it kind of hit Australia, was it like 2009 or something? A lot of work dried up. I think I was installing Foxtel, transitioned the truck over to a bit of cable work, and installed Foxtel for 6 months or a year or something while the building trade kind of picked back up. And I think it was during that time I did a first aid course.
Yep.
And the guy came in and he was talking about how he'd gone to an accident, and, you know, how he'd made all these like critical thinking, on the fly decisions. You know, he's like, I've got to this car and I'm doing this and then I'm moving on. Just that whole cascade of thinking about lots of different things in sequence and being able to make a decision and all that kind of stuff. It was like a faster version of building, really, you know?
Yeah.
And that appealed to me. So I think after the GFC, I was a little bit lost, and I was like, oh, I've seen it got advertised, Paramedics, New South Wales. I'll throw my hat in the ring and see how I go, because I didn't really see myself as being uni material. So they offered like a traineeship in the Paramedics.
Really?
Yeah, so it's just kind of like 4 years of training on the job.
That's because it is a university degree now, right? I think, is it?
Yeah, it's pretty much these days it's purely university, but they offer this traineeship where you kind of do it in segments. And
Yep.
you go back, learn a few more skills. They send you back out there. You can do a bit extra. You come back, they train you up again. You go back out there, and that's how I kind of got. Well, in the end, you just end up with a diploma. You don't end up with the degree, but you're
Yep.
still fully qualified, and I do everything the same as someone that has the degree. So
That's
yeah,
freaking
so being a
awesome.
hands-on learner, that appealed to me, and somehow they let me in, and now I enjoy it.
It's wild. I got a lot of respect, obviously, for the first responders and the work that you guys do. Like some of the stuff that you see and how you manage that, like even mentally and emotionally, is something that I admire, and I just can't seem to get my head around how you guys do that. Like it's so admirable, but I think my stomach's too weak to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the bad jobs are pretty few and far between. They're probably not as often as people think, but
Yep.
I mean, they do add up for sure. Like I've been doing it for 13 years now, so and there's a lot of jobs over that time I can still remember very clearly. And
Yep.
it's about having probably the same as anything. It's about having a good network of mates, particularly in the job, that understand the job, and we kind of debrief and touch bases every now and then. Just
Yep.
get that sense of like it's okay that these jobs might kind of hurt you a little bit here and there, but at the end of the day, we do good work, and it probably affects us because we are conscious and analytical of the situation and how we might have been able to do it better or different or anything like that. And so
Yep.
that's what keeps us improving. So
Had you already started skydiving by this point?
I think I started skydiving just after I joined the job. Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
right.
sold my motorbikes as I joined the job.
Yeah, right. Because you started, what, 2017, I think I read somewhere. Or is that Luch?
No, I started the same year I joined the job, so it'd be about 13 years been skydiving as
Oh,
well.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so when would that be?
Yep.
2012 or something, 2011.
Yep. And what was it that sort of drew you from that? So obviously you got out, sold the bikes and everything like that, moving into paramedics. Were you just looking for that next thing, ready to overcome the high staircase fear? The fear of the
Yeah, yeah.
staircase.
Yeah, I think I met a guy that had done it a little bit. He'd kind of finished, but he's like, oh, I've done a bit of skydiving and stuff like that. So he kind of was like, this is how you get into it. And that's basically how I got into it. I didn't have any mates that did it directly, and I didn't know anyone that did the course. So I just rocked up by myself one day and signed up and went through it a little bit. So I kind of talk about on the doco about how I've just always kind of made my own decisions. I haven't been like, oh, like safety in numbers, let's go do this together. I was just like, oh, I might do this, and I just get into it. You always meet people in whatever you're doing. So
Where do you feel that comes from? Because that was going to be a question I was going to ask. Like, if you're comfortable doing things by yourself, so many people are restricted from doing things that not are restricted. They restrict themselves from living a great life because they don't maybe have people in their current life that would do it with them. They don't have that foresight to know what you just said, where you will meet new people in whatever you do. So where do you feel you
yeah,
develop that?
I think I've always been kind of like that. I was an only child. That probably, you learn to get out there a little bit more. I don't know where that comes from actually, but yeah, I've always been pretty comfortable doing just achieving my goals of
Yep.
what I kind of wanted to do. So I'm not sure where it stems from.
It's a good skill to have, and probably as people watch the doco and just even learn more about you, the beauty in, I'm sure, do you ever experience, I guess, initially when you're going to, for example, when you went to start skydiving, was there any fear around not fitting in or anything like that, or you just were like, let's just go do it, I want to do it?
Not socially, no, not really. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a bit socially awkward sometimes, but I think it's never really been bothered me because I'm generally pretty quiet at the start anyway.
Yep.
I do remember, like on a funny aspect, I was so terrified of skydiving, and even after I'd done like 10 or 20 jumps, a few times I'd drive all the way to the drop zone, we call it, where you indulge in the skydiving, and I'd get there and be like, I'm so scared, I'm not getting out of the car. There's no way. And I'd think to myself, I don't know anyone here. I didn't tell anyone I'm coming, so no one knows I've driven to the car park. If I just drive home, no one will know I even came. And I sit there contemplating about going home for ages sometimes, and I think, oh, just get out of the car, get out of the car.
Never
And then,
regret.
once you've done a few jumps and head home, you're so satisfied in yourself. So
How many jumps do you normally do a day?
when you're learning, you're probably only doing a couple, but I think the most I ever did was I kind of got to the stage where I was doing a little bit of coaching.
Yep.
So not teaching people how to skydive, but teaching people that have got a few hundred jumps and they want to skydive better.
Yep.
So I'd kind of, if I was doing camps like that, sometimes I'd be doing 12, 13 jumps a day, which is that's probably maxed out.
What's your adrenaline like during that? Because when I went skydiving, I remember I was like, we're going to land on the beach and I'm going to go to the pub and smash a heap of beers. But after I landed, maybe 30 minutes later, I just had this big crash of energy because the
Oh,
adrenaline
yeah.
just cooked me. So
Yeah.
after doing 13, like, how do you feel?
Oh, yeah. I'd be totally taxed completely. I'd just be exhausted. And I used to think I was probably like one of the only, well, not probably only ones, but it definitely seemed like it affected me more than anyone else. There's a lot of other people that could just charge all day and then kind of have a few drinks, have some dinner, and then kick on through the night, wake up, do it again, and especially like a lot of skydivers that then transition to base jumping, because like you were saying, base jumping is regarded as a bit more scarier and a bit more on the line. You'd come back to skydiving and feel a lot more comfortable. You're like, oh, this isn't that scary. There's not much to worry about.
Yep.
And that wasn't me. I'd come back to skydiving after a few months in Europe, and that door would open, and I'd be petrified every time.
You just got to
I'd be
go.
like, oh god, here we go. Yeah, I'd be exhausted. I'd be exactly what you're saying. So and it's probably only a handful of times I did that amount of jumps. Generally 7 or 8 was pretty nice. 7 or 8's kind of comfortable.
That's still nuts. And how does it work? Because once again, I'm curious around like, so when I went jumping, I think it cost me like $300 or whatever. So when you're jumping solo, it's not obviously costing you $300 to jump. Do you just pay like a day fee to jump or something like that? Or how does that all work?
Yeah, you pay per jump. I think like when I first started, there was a few places that were like maybe $30 or something.
Yep.
These days, I think it's close to 50, 45, $50.
Expensive
Yeah.
hobby.
So yeah, if you go and do 10 jumps, it's $500 a day.
Yep.
You can rack up.
Definitely for an adrenaline fueled day, that's for sure.
Yeah, but then motorbikes was the same. You'd kind of burn a lot of rubber on your tires, and then maybe you throw your bike down the road a couple of times. You're like, oh god, expensive.
You just love the expensive sports. What was it like motorbike riding though? So to me, once again, I used to ride dirt bikes, but you watch the like MotoGP and the road bikes, though, that's freaking fast. Or like the Isle of Man race and stuff on the streets.
Yeah.
Like, what was it like for you doing that? Did you just froth on that, or how'd you get into it? What motivated you to stay into it?
Yeah, that one I think I actually did get into with a couple of mates. Well, they already rode.
Yep.
So, and then I ended up buying a bike and kind of did the usual, just went 110%, kind of got all the gear, no idea, and just had a crack. And, you're just obsessive.
Yep.
If I wasn't doing it, I was watching YouTube how to do it better, or I was just mentally rehearsing how I could be better. And, once you're probably similar. I know you're a quite sporty guy. You're probably similar in that once you kind of feel this technical side of sports or whatever you're trying to achieve, that's when the addiction kind of comes in, because you're like, now I'm analyzing how the sport works. I can work out how I can be better at it.
The 1%ers.
Yeah, and that's where you get that drive. You're like, yes, okay. So yeah,
it is fascinating. Like when you think about that, like the obsessive. My wife always says the same, and people in my life, that when I go from sport to sport, it's just like you find it and you get obsessed with it, and you just rinse it of everything you possibly can, from YouTube videos to going to events to meeting the best people in it, and then pushing yourself to that I guess threshold of what you're capable of. And there's something about the strategy and the finicky things that I really enjoy, because I don't know whether it's because I know a lot of people wouldn't do that, or it's just very fascinating to me to deconstruct something to work out how to make it better.
Yeah, that's the addiction, I think. Like it's and I was never one of the freaks. We've all had those friends that are just good at everything straight away, and they frustrate you. But
yeah,
I did get accused a couple of times of being learning things slightly quicker than the average bear. But I kept saying to people, I was like, I don't think in terms of how much work I put into it, like, yeah, we might be going to the track the same, or we're doing the exact same amount of skydives, but like I'm lying there all the time with my eyes closed thinking about it. And, and you think back to all these old scientific studies where guys are shooting basket hoops,
Yep.
with their eyes closed, they improve. And
Yep.
I think it's the same. Like if you broke down how many hours I'd actually put into it, I'm probably slower.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of hours there.
Makes a lot of sense. What was it, like now that you've got a 2-year-old son as well, like are you diving just as much as you did, or have you sort of cut back on that? Like has having a son shifted how you approach your diving at all?
Well, I think I haven't jumped now for I think over a year, even skydived.
Yep.
So I did quite a few. I think I did 60 or 70 odd after the accident.
Yep.
But then obviously, the household went from two incomes, me and my partner Sophie, and two of us, to three of us and one income because Sophie became a stay-at-home mum. So,
Yep.
there's the finance thing, the reason there, and there's also the time. Like, I'd kind of just rather hang out with the family, going down to the drop zone for an entire day. It's the family can come with you, but it's pretty loud, the plane, and
Yep.
a lot of people and stuff like that. So just spending a bit more time with them and going down the beach and saving money and stuff like that kind of just pulled me away from the sport a little bit. And it kind of just got to the point where I was like, I struggled to justify spending that amount of money on just a hobby that I indulged in every now and then.
Yep.
I think if I was to get right back into it, it'd be fine. I wouldn't mind. The money wouldn't bother me, but just picking it up every now and then, I was like, it's probably not worth it. I miss the social aspect of it. A lot of my friends still jump, and there's this. I like a lot of sports. Skydiving has this fraternity,
Yep.
with it, and it's one of the great things about it. So I miss a lot of that aspects, but in other times it's just moving on. These days I'm just surfing a lot and hanging out with the young fella. So
Yeah, that's cool. And that
different
is one
chapter.
of the different chapter, yeah, different season of life. Can we talk about January 16, 2021, what that day was like for you, and even in the lead up to it? Obviously you'd done hundreds of jumps to the lead up of that, and how that day changed your life.
Yeah, I suppose it was just, to me, it was just another normal jump until obviously I completely stuffed up. Like, I've made this catastrophic accident that was purely me. No one else was involved in what I did. Like the mistake I made, no one was involved in the mistake. But then, my good friend Luchi paid the piper for it, almost with his life. So it's still, even to this day, and I think I'll take it to the grave, that it's very hard to swallow that I made that big a mistake. It's embarrassing. There's a lot of things associated with it. And then obviously the rehabilitation of my leg, the accident in terms of injury, I seem to be fine with. I was like, I've charged hard in a lot of sports for years now. And this is really my first accident, like I've done very minor things prior to that. I've never even broken a bone. Wow. Other than like small things, like hands and feet. So, I was like, whatever, it's just my turn. Everyone's had a turn at being banged up. It's my turn. So the first 6 months of rehab was pretty good. But then obviously I just, like we were talking about before, with our like mentality towards how we deal with things, we have these goals, have this almost warrior instinct that like I'm choosing this goal, and to overcome, like to achieve that goal, you want to dominate it. That was like that sense, and that's how I treated my rehabilitation. Everyone's like, you just got to work super hard, and I felt like I was working harder than I could have imagined.
Yep.
And I was going backwards. And it was pretty hard to swallow. So that was probably the start of the mental game. So prior to that, it was very physical.
So what ended up happening to your knee at that point in time?
I'd smashed like the knee, so it completely dislocated the knee, and just popping the knee like completely out of the socket. You just tear everything.
Yeah.
So in terms of bone damage, it wasn't that much. It was a few things kind of snapped off the head of of either side, but not a great deal of bone damage, but all the ligaments, tendons and all that kind of stuff just completely snapped. And as you know, like your knee has a fair range of motion. It's not like your shoulder, but like it has a fair range of motion. And you've got all this soft tissue that's very pliable in being able to achieve that range of motion. And once you snap everything and it just seals back together in a scar, it just loses all pliability. So my knee just became completely seized up. So it wouldn't straighten and it wouldn't bend. It was just kind of locked in this about 30 degrees. I mean, in terms of like accidents, it wasn't that bad, really. You know, like I still had everything else working fine. It was just this knee. But that was probably one of the biggest things, you know, like in my mind, it was a lame injury. It wasn't affecting a great deal of my body. It was only my knee. Everything else was fine. But it broke me, completely broke me. So
Why do you feel it broke you?
once I realized I wasn't really getting anywhere with my rehabilitation and I wasn't achieving what I thought was achievable. In my mind, it was right there. I was like, I can achieve this goal. I can rewrite the books. You know, all the doctors were saying, like, your leg's not going to work anywhere near like what it used to. And I was like, I don't worry about that. You know, I'm writing my own book.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to achieve this in half the time. And I was like, don't worry about the time frame. I got it. Once I kind of realized I wasn't achieving anything, there was the embarrassment of like how, you know, lame the injury was. That's when I just kind of went into this depressive state. You know, there was a lot of moments of anger and stuff, but it came down to the point where like I made a conscious decision. I was like, right, I've lived a really good life. I'm 36 years old. I've lived this great life. I've done everything I like, so many cool things, and now my life doesn't suit me. So I think I'm going to end it. I'm going to choose to take my own life. That was basically, you know, I'd come down to this thought process. And at the time, the scariest thing was I seemed very, you know, almost at peace with the decision. And somehow I got out of that space and kind of came good. And that's what this documentary is about. It's once I realized I'd come out of it and then all this great stuff happened, you know, like I'm continuing to hang out with my friends. I'm still surfing. I'm still doing all these great things. I became a father. And I was like, wow, like I was that close. It felt like it was right there. And like yourself, like I'm sure you've lost friends or
Yeah.
you know, family to suicide, because you know most of us have these days. And I was like, well, I'm gonna be really honest and just get out there and tell my story and how I felt. I suppose in a sense just kind of create a little bit of safety in numbers, because sometimes all it takes is for someone else to go, oh, Ben had this feeling and he's fine. So maybe I just got to keep pushing through. That's the idea of the documentary, I guess.
It's a powerful story, and thanks for sharing that, Ben. Like, I often think about it, if my body wasn't able to do what I can do now, like how would I cope with that, just from like an identity standpoint? Very similar to you, like live a very active life. I've had a great life, but I feel without having experienced it, I would definitely struggle in that chapter. So for you to be able to make peace and keep pushing through, I think it's always, what's it, darkest before the dawn, or whatever it is. Like if you can persevere through tough times, there's generally meaning and purpose that comes out the back of that. And obviously, as you said, that's what brought to life the documentary, also becoming a father, and these next sort of seasons of your life, which is made you the man that you are.
Yeah, and it's really cool, interesting, and cool to hear you use those words like make peace with it, because I use the exact same analogy, because you know I realized it was my depression was not something that I needed to conquer. Like we were talking about before, I had this conquer mentality, like I must defeat everything.
Yep.
And learn about it and dominate it. The thing that got me through was making peace with it. And I know it might sound weird and it might not resonate with everyone, but it resonates really well with me. Like once I made peace with that time in my life, I really moved forward with a lot of growth. You get a lot of personal growth through these dark times. So
As well, to that point, like, I want listeners to take that away. There's no one size fits all for anything mental health related. Like there's a difference with mental illness and mental health, and you know, trauma and tragedy like can put us in dark places, and what works for one individual may not work for the other. And it's there's so many tools available, and you can, seek professional help. You can lean into your communities or whatever it is, and what works today may not work tomorrow as well. And I think it's really important to understand that and not be hard on yourself. But it's just going, okay, today this is what I need, or tomorrow that's, yesterday that's what I needed, and just accepting that. And I think your point there was making peace is what it's always got to be around, because it's the relationship that we have with ourselves is projecting onto everything. And if we're not happy within, the work has to start within. And quite often it's not about adding more or conquering, as you said. It's just like accepting what is, and then allowing ourselves to build off that base.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's really well said. And because I kind of struggle to put my thoughts into words a lot of times, especially when relating to this. And I think, what you said then definitely resonates with how I kind of moved forward. So,
what does life look like for you now? So you guys are obviously have released Impact, and you're doing well with all the film festivals, and there's so many opportunities that are going to come off the back of it, because it's such an inspiring story. And I'm super grateful that you guys are here to tell the story. And as I was saying to Luch last week as well, like being able to turn this painful experience, and even for yourself, Ben, like there's so much strength in your ability to own and take responsibility for what happened that so many people would just try and avoid. And for me, I find it so admirable, and it's something that I really respect about you, just being like, I fucked up. For me, I'm like, that is complete ownership. That people talk about it on the internet all the freaking time, but this is like a really tough real life use case where you've done that. And to then be able to be building something like a tool or a resource essentially with the documentary that can inspire and can tell the story from both perspectives. And that's what I'm really excited to speak to both yourself and Luch in I think January, where we can have you both on and dive deep into the accident and perspectives and thoughts. I think will be really cool. But yeah, moving forward for you, like what are you most excited about with the documentary?
I'm not sure what's really to come with it, to be honest. Like me and Luch all the time are like brainstorming about what we could do, like,
yeah,
and it sounds all well and good, but you never know. Like maybe it just all gets viewed, and everyone gets this sense of entertainment, a little bit of a story, and it disappears in 12 months' time, or maybe we kind of build off it, like you're saying. Like it'd be really cool if we can build off it and kind of develop something for mental health, like just people kind of getting out and about and sharing stories and all that kind of stuff. It could be really cool. There could be something really cool come out of it. Either way, like I'm really trying to enjoy every aspect, like enjoy this, even watching the film the other week. I went down to the Byron Film Festival, and that's the first time like I'd actually sat down and watched the entire documentary. I'd seen every segment, but to watch the whole thing start to finish, and there's definitely segments there. I'm looking at the screen, I'm like, oh my god, Ben, you're absolutely pathetic. What are you doing?
yeah.
But I was like, oh, just embrace it. It is what it is. And pathetic is a human emotion, and I guess I can't rob myself of everything. So
spot on. I don't. Every podcast episode I listen back to of myself or content, there's always moments where I find myself in, like, I'm just like, dude, that was so cringy, or why'd you say that, or why'd you act like that? But I think, as you said, it's like, it's part of the human experience as well. We're doing the best that we can with the information that we have, and we're, everyone's got a reason behind why we're doing what we're doing, and we use this as feedback, right? To get better, to get more clear, to get more concise, and impact other people, because ultimately, I think you guys have such a unique story in and of the fact that you guys are great friends afterwards as well, and you've got both sides of the story. Like for me, where it's so powerful is perspective is what either makes people live incredible lives or can fully dismantle their life, whether they're taking it through like a empowered mindset, sort of how you've done, or the victim mindset, I fucked up and let me just destroy my life and punish myself as a result. And the fact that you were both there to tell the story of the same event is so freaking powerful. And I'm genuinely so excited to have that conversation when we have it, to be able to really just highlight that from a real life event.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's definitely, and everyone, like you said, there's a few people that have just been so excited on that fact. And like you're saying, me and Lucci, we knew each other, but you know, like the making of this film, and even just chatting after, you know, I collided with him.
Yeah, yeah.
We've become a lot closer, and with Paddy as well, the main film. Oh, we've had our challenges making the film. God, like all three of us, we've all tested each other. You know, there's been some good heated arguments, but we always just come back to base. You know, right, all right, come on, we're all
Yep.
friends. Let's think about what we're doing.
Why we're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just go back to the first step, which was we're all just going to come together, put our footage together, and have some fun. That was like the number one goal. Was always like just have some fun. So every time we kind of come back to that, like, you know, any kind of anger has never been sustained. So
That's cool. And what has that documentary process been like? Like, had you ever done any filmmaking or documentary stuff prior, or has it just been like off the back of this, you're now sort of putting it together?
yeah, I'd never done anything, and I've been very poor throughout my life with camera. You know, even when I was doing base jumping and stuff like that, I'd get to the exit point and I'd left my camera in my tent, flat. Like I forget to turn it on. I've always been someone that's just like, I'm really happy just for me,
Yep.
you know. And I think I even started I think I started social media when I kind of was heading over to do one of my base trips. I was like, I'm going to start sharing it online, and then that was probably like the worst season I ever used my camera. Put up one, and then I put one video up, and my nan seen it because everyone's on social media these days. And my nan was like, "Oh my god, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, better take that one down."
Yeah, don't want her seeing that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've never been great with the camera. I'm terrible in front of the camera, which you'll probably see when you watch the documentary. I'm just hopeless, like a deer in headlights. So it was a complete unique experience to me. And just the way that like everything's filmed to then how it translates on the screen, like that was a bit odd to me. And yeah, I think Lucci had a little bit of background, so he was pretty good. He's done a couple of things here and there, so and he's a lot better with the camera. He takes a GoPro with a lot of things. Like he lives a very adventurous life, as you know from Chattanooga, and he's always got the camera rolling, so he's pretty creative that way.
Just banking those memories, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he's such a character. So, yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, I wasn't as good.
It's great that you've been able to use this experience in your life for good and like shifting your perspective around it. And I guess to the documentary point, there's a book that I've read a number of times, but it's by Jim Rohn, who's like a professional development speaker, and he said one thing in this audio tape that I was listening to is like, there's three things that you leave behind. It's your books, which will help people understand what shaped your thoughts and ideas, your journals to understand what you thought about, and then your photos to understand like the experiences and memories that you lived. Obviously, we're in a bit more of a digital age now. So I was like, right, podcast, YouTube, journal. Cool. That's what I can leave behind for people. So my sort of idea behind things is if I can document moments of my life, even if people don't want to watch them, there might be a chance that when I'm 95 and can't do too much, I'll be able to put on the headset and just, you know, relive moments in my life.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a good way to think about it, actually. So that's an interesting book.
Yeah, I'll share it with you after because I listen to it quite regularly. It's very simple and to the point, but just helps remind me of what, you know, is important within what I believe to be important within life. But now that you're a dad as well, Ben, I'd love to know with what you're creating and just even the fact that you're surfing, you've been through this experience, you're impacting people's lives probably more than you even realize already. How do you want your son to remember you? Or not even remember you, but think about you?
Well, that's an interesting one. Hey, fatherhood's so different and it changes all the time. I guess I got so much growth out of this, you know, this process, and I still am because I'm always learning. And I guess for my son, hopefully I can gift him with the ability like that I'm influencing him to make his own decisions and just in guidance, and hopefully he can embrace his mistakes. You know, it inspires me to go to the gym. Hopefully I can still kick his ass for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Until he takes over. But yeah, I just want him to kind of view me as a mentor, a friend, and you know, someone he looks up to. So just trying to be that person in life in all aspects. Just be a generalized good person,
I
I
love it,
guess.
mate.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a bit hard to kind of put that one into a definitive answer.
No, I just was curious as to whether it was something that you could put into words, because for me, one of the things that I love most about podcasting is being able to learn from people in all different walks of life around like what makes them tick and what they're aspiring to be. And I think a lot of it comes back to some common principles just around like the importance of connection and just making not only yourself feel valued and heard, but allowing the people that you care about most to feel that love and value and support. Even though it's very easy to get focused on so many other things outside of that, from wealth to watches to everything else like that. But at the end of the day, especially when you go through experiences like what you've gone through, like it definitely makes you question life, right? And you've
Oh
thought
yeah, yeah.
a lot about that. So, has your perspective on life shifted since the accident as well, or
Oh,
even since the
yeah. I think the biggest thing has been because I was such like a goal orientated person,
Yep.
and I'm also very analytical. So I've spent a lot of my life, and it's either analyzing what I've done in the past, and you know how it might have been perceived by others, how I could be better if I've said anything wrong, how I could say it better, or just actions. You know, did this? How did I act then? Should I have been a better friend? All these things. And if I wasn't thinking about that, I was thinking about goals. Right? What am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to be better? I just want to be better than the version I was yesterday. And it's such an obsession. And I realized I'd missed out on a lot of this moment, because that's one thing we all have, and that's right now. And going through all that, I realized I just need to just take a breath here and there, embrace this moment for what it is, what's happening right now, live in the moment a lot more. So it's fine to have those goals and have that warrior mentality, but you know, what's the saying? Don't let the regrets of yesterday and the concerns of tomorrow steal this moment. So
it's a beautiful quote.
yeah.
But that sort of summarizes or validates my point from a moment ago. That was the exact thing that I probably needed to kick up the arse with. I'm very goal orientated, very, very, very analytical with things. And hearing you say that's exactly what my wife says to me, and a lot of people. It's like, dude, just we've got to learn to let go of things a little bit and just live in the moment. I travel a lot around the world and I've got an incredible life, but a lot of the time I'm like, I'd have to be in bed by this time because I'm doing this at 5 a.m. and then we're doing that. And it's like, it's cool to a point for some things, but I'm also like missing out on the spontaneity. Spontaneity of life that as it's unfolding.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You know, just even little things like obviously my son's teach reminds me of that and teaches me of that, because they are
Yep.
just the absolute lords of living in the moment. You know, you just
Lords of living in the moment. I love it.
yeah, because you know, just I don't know, a song comes on the radio and they're just like, what? And they just jump off the couch and start dancing around the lounge. Just like they are, you know, they have this pure joy on their face. And I think, why should I be sitting here thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow? Just admire him doing his
Yep.
thing. Yeah, he's a good little reminder.
It's awesome. But Benny, I've really appreciated you coming on, and I know we're going to dive, because there's probably people thinking we should have jumped into more detail around the accident and everything like that. But it's just, guys, you guys got to come back in January when we record with both yourself and Luch together, and we can dive into that in more detail. But for everyone listening, if you had questions for Ben that you would like me to ask when we do the next episode in a couple of months' time, make sure you send them through, and we'll be able to dive into that. But Benny, mate, you are a big inspiration to me. And as I was saying earlier, I don't know whether you recognize the impact. Like, people talk a lot about personal responsibility and owning up to things, and you've done that. And I can't imagine how hard that would be, But the fact that you can sit here and just fucking own it is so aspirational. I wish a lot more people could do that in their life. I think the world would be a better place, and that's why I really believe more people will get so much value from this documentary, because you're getting both sides of the story. You're getting you showing strength and courage through owning a mistake, which we all make mistakes in life. That's part of life. And then obviously having gone through what you went through with the rehabilitation and the mental challenges that you've faced to still be here now, turning your pain into purpose, which is a beautiful thing to watch from afar.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for the kind words. And yeah, hopefully when we catch up in January, a lot of people have watched the film, and obviously the film goes into the accident and gives you a really good idea, because everyone's wearing GoPros, so we have
plenty of footage.
Yeah, you can see everything, and you get the real time of how everything happened. But obviously, there's a lot of things we didn't really discuss in there that just might have been a bit boring for the big screen, or we weren't sure how it would be perceived. So hopefully, when we catch up in January, we have a bit more of an idea of what people kind of think of the film, and where it might have left a little bit of a hole, and like, I'd like to know more about this part. So that's where it'd be really good. Catch up with you, with Luchi, and we can have a good yarn about that kind of stuff. It'd be great.
Sounds good. Well, thanks so much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me, mate. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. And everyone, just check out the show notes below. You'll be able to find the links to the documentary and Ben's links as well. So all you got to do is click it and get going. As always, do something today to be better for tomorrow.